guest this week here on Music Cap. You are quite the individual. You have done all sorts of different things. You're a great author, great speaker, all these different things. Kind of educate me and Naiya a little bit here about you, and we'll have some questions for you back and forth here.
Okay, fine. Hey, appreciate being here.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
I've done a lot of things in my lifetime. Award-winning salesman for many years with major companies. Son of a famous, we'll get into that, the in-between artist. Getting towards retirement years, and I decided I found all my father's scrapbooks and all his writings since 1932 in my mom's garage a couple years before she passed 11 years ago. And she said, hey, you might want to do something with this someday. So, it was time in my life. I just decided I'm going to do it. Locked myself up in my mountain cabin, took about 20 boxes of notes and journals and scrapbooks. Came up with this. Pardon me?
No. Go ahead, brother. No. Talk to us here. Talk to us. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
and basically, I just decided to do it, and I just locked myself up for about 5 or 6 years on weekends at our mountain cabin, and put it all together. And I came through and got my mom's wish to come through. I wrote my dad's story. He had amazing story. He suffered mental illness, but he was the first guy on radio and TV when they just came out, the first cartoonist on TV. He won awards at the World's Fair after his first Britain breakdown in Chicago after the war. And he won first and second place from his religious art. And 2 priests lent him $10 because he didn't have the money. And he ends up winning the first place. From there, he went on the radio in Chicago and became a #1 radio program teaching kids how to draw in Chicago. And from there, it was just one thing after another. And he hung in there till about 1956. And, he got a terrible car accident after 4 years of having the talk show nationwide on KTLA, first cartoonist on TV. And it was, another breakdown, lost his memory, straitjacket, taken to the hospital. And I saw that at 6 years old. And anyway, a lot of things went on in my life. And I tried to condense that from all this stuff he wrote and made it an interesting story for people that are around me. I'll try to have them understand it better. And I was there along the whole way, my teenage years up until I went to college, pretty much.
So you just found a whole bunch of letters, or like you said, like diaries from your dad, and decided to make them some in a book. Like, is that what you're saying? Like, just decided to make them. So which chapter stood out to you the most? Like, as you were reading these diaries or letters, which one stood out to you the most? Like, which one kind of appealed to you, or kind of just shocked you that he was actually writing about this?
Well, my dad was so busy growing up. What really shocked me is when I found out, because I broke up and cried when I had to help him get in mental hospitals, because at that time, there was a time you had to actually put yourself in. Mm-hmm. It's still that way today, I guess. But anyway, I talked him into it, but that was where it blew my mind. And then when I read one diary that he actually talked about what was going on in his inner mind when he was going through this cycle.
Oh,
and
wow.
He became aware of it, and he kind of described how it's being hypnotized, and you're on top of the world, but you kind of don't have a lot of control, and how he just, everybody loved him when they call it a high cycle when you're schizophrenic or paranoia. And I remember that my friends never knew my real dad growing up, and he would get in these cycles and they thought he was the greatest guy on earth. But what's that?
No, go ahead. We're just listening, my friend. We want you to tell your story. Go ahead, my friend. Tell us a story here.
Yeah, and so that just blew my mind, and I was able to hide it growing up. And I had a brother that I had my other brothers and sisters. My one sister was on Happy Days, movie star. That book will be out probably by the end of the year. I wrote her life story too, but she suffered from mental illness from the age of 19 on, but she was a co-star of the first TV show on the cover of TV Guide at 16, Happy Days with Ronnie Howard. But
Wow.
but then she wrote journals, and after I did my dad's and my sister passed, I thought, So that's what I'm doing now. And then someday I'll write my journals. But I guess that's the most thing that just blew me away. All of a sudden I'd get into, I didn't know what was going on at the time. And then I'd read about it because he wrote about it. I mean, the one time, which is kind of interesting in the story, he was actually, I never knew about what went down, but when I was about 16, he called me up in the middle of the night one day. He said, David, he said, come and get me. Or no, yeah, he says, come and get me. I need to come home. Make a long story short, I never knew the story. I was working in a grocery store, and he had this gal he was going to paint. And, he was going to do this fantastic painting of her. And all of a sudden, he went to her house to do it, and he fell in a pool. And I never asked questions. So he was working part-time in a real estate office back then. And I never asked questions. And I didn't know the whole story until I read his journal. What happened? He fell in the pool. He lost all his art supplies, and a kid had to drive in and get him. So he figured he can't come home all wet like this. He had some old clothes on. He called me. He says, come and pick me up. He had an old suit in the garage from his vaudeville days. He did vaudeville through the years too. He put that on, and I never asked him about it. And I figured, you never question your dad. You always, when your dad, I thought whatever he's doing is okay, Right. So that was kind of a surprise,
So you're reading these like journals or his diaries. Was there any one of them that you read that you could put your own self inside of it? Like you thought the same way, because this is your father. So you ever like read a letter and say, oh my God, he felt that way and I felt that way too? Or there's some days where you guys maybe did the same thing alike, you saw yourself doing the same thing, did you ever read anything like that?
Yeah. Yes, I did, because I really didn't get into sales. I was going to be a dentist growing up, went to college, didn't get into dental school, worked in the market for years. And then I got into sales, and I've been an award-winning salesman, and everybody told him he could sell anything. And I realized that his genetics for sales, I had those. Everybody used to say, Durazi, I don't understand how you do it. He says, what you get in these binds in a big sales situation, and you always come out on top. Nobody could put you up against the wall. And I said, and one thing I do recall, and I've been told that, and my son Sabat, I have 4 sons, is he put in the book, he wrote, one of his producers, when he got on his first radio station for KJAG years ago, he said, the guy was great, and he had a great smile. And he mentioned, smile is everything. And I've heard it multiple by a lot of people that talk about success and stuff, but it's our number one asset, and it's funny. I always just, people, if they're upset about something, but when you start smiling, it's just, you can't fight it,
And that's oh my gosh, that's awesome. So with you writing this book, I know there was happy times that you read and probably sad times that you read as well. Did you ever read anything that was just really traumatic for you to read or keep going out? Did you ever read diary that's saying, hey, put this up in? It was too strong for you to write.
You know what? It's funny that it's funny you mentioned that, because my son actually is a producer director for the award-winning show Flea Market Flip, and he's still in the reality TV. So he edited it, and he took that point out. Anyway, my dad was going to do my dad was into figure drawing and stuff, even from an early age. And he was going to do a naked drawing of this gal. And he basically took a lot of that out, and I put it back in, because it was kind of like, it was my dad, it wasn't like he was going over there to have, fun. He was going over there to do what he loved to do, paint. She's a beautiful woman, and he wanted to do a painting.
Oh,
and
wow.
And, you know, he talked about when they had the glass of wine, and it's in the book, and how she teased him. And he actually took that out. I put it back in because that was my dad. You know, I mean, it's like because he was a little gun shy of that. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if that's the right term, but he was. And I kind of put it back in, you know, and I felt you can't leave it out because it's part of the story. You know, it's part of my dad. But he was a lovable guy. And, you know, I didn't realize, I know I was going to school and he tried to go to Italy like 3 or 4 times. And his final time, he had his major nervous breakdown. And he actually, my cousin just happened to be over in Italy and found him with the Red Cross, found him and got him back to America. And anyway, he had surgery, you know, and that's how he ended up passing. He had lung cancer and there's a tumor on there. But anyway, I learned the whole story. I kind of relived my dad's life. And that's why it was so cool, because I have 4 sons and they got to know my dad and what he went through. And they never really knew their grandfather. My dad died when my oldest was 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what do you hope to, like, if someone was to buy this book, what do you think they gain out of reading this book? What are you hoping that they gasp? And what were you trying to put into people's minds as they read your book?
I think I really thought about that hard, because I must have thrown it out 10 times. You know, when you write so much, I throw out my notes, I do it again. I want them to really look at their life, and if they have friends and family that have mental issues, I think they'll get a lot out of this book, because this is a feel-good mental illness story of a guy that had many successes, who was my dad, and no matter what he was up against, he overcame it. And then it'll prove that even a young kid could help their parent if they're in this situation, and they'll be able to recognize things. And there's so many things out there to help people today, and it's there to be had. And that's what I'm hoping they get out. I don't plan to get rich on it. It'd be great if somebody made a movie about this book someday, and I think they will. I think they really will. It's really a good story, and I really want them to be friends, family, and, you know, with that C thing that just, you know, we're on the tail end of it. You know, I'm sure there's all types of mental illness. And, you know, if this thing ever got big, I'll donate 75% of it back to help those people that are fighting this and need help. I mean, I'm okay financially, and I don't need to write this book to get rich. And after reading about it, not a lot of people get a lot out of it. And I even leave it on Kindle for 99 cents on Amazon. But it's great to have the book. You get lots of pictures, but I want everybody to know this story.
Well, and it sounds so where people around the world are experiencing this. There are so many kids out there whose parents are going through that, and they're experiencing this, and they need to get the gasp of what to do, how there's other kids out there that are experiencing it. They're not alone. That's what this book basically says, that they're not alone. There's people out there that that's going through either the same thing they're going through, or hey, they got through it. This is how they got through it. And like you said, you're rewriting your dad's journals, you know, it's helpful. It's helpful. And I applaud you with it. Like I said, I work in a senior community. I see it all the time. There's, you know, family members come and visit their mom and dad, and their parents are going through what, you know what I'm saying, what you went through. And it's not an easy process. It's actually emotional. You see a whole bunch of emotion going around. And and they come and they ask questions, and we're there to answer as much as we can. But like your book says, your book actually goes through step by step and emotional and experience and life experiencing with what they're going through. And like I said, I definitely can grasp where you're coming from and what you're trying to get at. And like you said, you're not trying to be, you know, famous. You're just trying to help those who can read this book and understand where you're going through and the life that you had to go through. So, I mean, I applaud it. So tell us, what in the near future? You said you're writing a book. You're now writing the diaries of your sister. Is that right? So is she? Tell us a little bit about that book and how, you know, what is that somewhat of the same book that you just wrote, or is that going to be a little bit different?
No, be a little bit different. It's the eyes of a child star that she was groomed to be a child star from my mom, who was in vaudeville with my dad, and actually I was on some of his TV shows from 49 to 53, and how she was successful at the age of 11. She was on the Banana Splits Adventure Hour.
Oh,
Richard
wow.
Richard Donner was her director. He really, helped her, pushed her. She was one of the sour grape girls. And then she got her big break when she was 16, on the show Happy Days. Out of 400 different girls, she was chosen by Gary Marshall, the producer director. And, she was total success. And all of a sudden, at the age of 18, 19, her life, maybe it's genetics, who knows, or incidences occurs. Everybody has their own philosophy. I know PBS is running something special on mental illness now. I caught the other day. It's like, it's a mystery. Nobody really knows why people are like this. And all the cycles she went through, and then probably the last 15 years of her life, I became her caretaker, kind of helping her out like I helped my dad. It kind of reoccurred, and I write about that and all the experiences I had with her. She was a star on the Brady Bunch. She made a movie with Ronnie Howard, but she struggled with this mental illness. And I think it's the same thing. I didn't, it's just a lot of people have these child stars they have these little girls. My sister was beautiful, Kathy O'Dare. She used the same name as my dad, and they bring them on like, the kids don't even know what's going on. My sister was doing dancing at 3 years old and going to all these dance classes and jazz, and got an agent at 11. So that's what it's about. It'll be an interesting story. And, when I write it, I go and I run and write the true story, and I work hard at it. I worked on it a year and a half, but I want to make it interesting. I got a lot of photos in there, that you'll see what she was like. And I think if they got a child, they're trying to move on. Maybe there's some good and bad to forcing a young kid into the movie industry.
Exactly.
Which you hear,
So where can we find your books at? These books that you have written, where can anyone find them at? And where can they find you at?
Okay, they can find me. My website is www.davidfderazzi.com. I have a blog on there. You can purchase my books at amazon.com and Barnes and Noble. And it can be purchased at any bookstore in your area too. It's got an ISBN number. And like I said, I hope everybody can read it. And, if they want to get back with me, I'll answer them. I got my email on my website. Give me a call. I don't care. It's an experience, and it just proves I had a successful life. I was most inspirational player on the football team with all this stuff going on with my dad, in and out of mental hospitals. I finished, I was a scholar, but you can do it. You can't let that get you sucked up, but you got to be there to try to help too. Exactly. So the guy told me I never had a childhood when I went to therapy one time. He's probably right. He's probably right. I was an adult and I had to carry the family. I had one brother that was physically disabled. I had one brother that was kind of mentally disabled too, but in a different way. But anyway, my mom used to call me the Golden Boy, and hopefully the Golden Boy will wrote a book that'll make everybody happy. The name of my sister's book is going to be "Is Everybody Happy?" She always used to say that, even in her mental state, and that's what the title's going to be. So we'll see.
So tell us, where are you originally from? Tell us where are you at? Where are you from?
Okay, I was born and raised in a little community of Eagle Rock. It's about 15 miles north of Hollywood, and my dad moved there years ago. My grandfather was an Italian immigrant from Italy, went to New York, ended up in Missoula, had 12 kids, ended up buying a market. He was a blacksmith, but he bought a market, a hotel, and a bar, and that's how he raised his children. A priest lent him $500 to buy all that in 1913.
Oh my God.
And because my grandma used to go to church every day. And then my dad moved to Spokane, had a radio station, and then he moved to Hollywood, radio, TV. We lived in Eagle Rock, and now I live in Los Angeles in the near the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California.
Well, thank you so much for your time, for telling us about your wonderful books, and of course, where we can find them at, where we can find you at. Again, your books are more, to my knowledge, is going to be more educational, inspirational. Thank you so much for writing them and telling us a little bit about them. And thank you for being a guest here on Music Cat.
All right. Well, I really appreciate it. You're right. You know, my mom in her later years, I visited her, and sure that you deal with the senior homes. I mean, it's like amazing. They get excited when they see somebody in a visitor. And I'll never forget when my sister was in a mental hospital. I asked in a halfway house, they had 60 people there. I asked the gal, how many families come and see these people? She said, oh, maybe 6 out of 60. So it's like I went and saw my sister, and I was a big hit. You know, it's like I feel like gave back. You know, and it's like you got to do that. In other words, and I think a lot of older people die of loneliness. You know, because they don't have people visiting them. They kind of get set apart in their life. Same with mental people. You know, I saw that mental people with all the drugs, and I read that somewhere that they decreased their life by 10, 20 years. You know, maybe if somebody went to visit them, you could extend their life, and who knows? A small percentage get better, but you never know.
I mean, it's amazing. And like I said, your book is going to be very inspiration to a lot of people that are experiencing the same thing. I can't thank you enough for writing it. Thank you so much for your time and explaining it and letting us know more about it. We have to have you back on the show to let us know the progress of your sister's book. You know, I mean,
All right. Yeah, we will. Be glad to.
yes, we have to learn about the progress and your coming out with that one as well. So thank you again.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, I felt it's time to give back, and I want to give back to help people that have been in that situation because it isn't always a dead end.
No,
You
no.
know?
There's always happiness on the other side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
definitely,
Exactly.
definitely. Well, David, I appreciate you doing this, my friend. We definitely enjoy seeing you and hearing from you and all this stuff. So good stuff, sir.
Thank you very much. I really
Well,
appreciate the time and the opportunity.
yes,
You guys
yes.
take care.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate it, Naya. I will talk to you next week. And David, thank you, sir. I will talk to you here very soon. Keep us updated on the progress of that book, sir.
Yes.
Definitely will. Definitely will. Take care.
Thank you, brother. There goes Naya and David D. Arazi. And that is that. It is Music Cap